This is the DRS Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Sheldon Alexander, and we've been making picks throughout the end of the NBA season and the NBA playoffs. To recap, on Monday's pod, we went 1-1, splitting the conference finals game one. But as we continue on, the record continues to cook. 34-26 against the spread in the play-in/playoffs, an overall record of 46-30-1 against the spread for my NBA picks overall. So remember to like and subscribe to the DRS Sports Podcast. Hit the button, hit the subscribe button right here on YouTube so that you'll never miss our betting insights. With game one, we'll come right off of game one of last night's action. And I got to say, I'm mad at myself for picking the Mavs in game one. Of course, this is going to be hindsight.
Right.
Happens, right?
Yeah.
112-87 Warriors dominate the Mavs, take a 1-0 lead. Game two goes Friday night. Golden State favored by 6.5. And as mentioned, I'm going to be on the Warriors because I'm mad at myself for taking the Mavs in game one. And the reason is because most of what happened at the end of the Mavs-Suns series was more of an indictment of the Suns that I might have given credit to, as opposed to what Luka and the Mavs did to said Suns. I'm not saying the series is over. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, I thought Golden State was going to win the series. Said that on last pod. I said I wouldn't be surprised if the Mavs won. Well, after watching game one, I'm not going to say I'm swayed and Warriors are going to sweep them, but I don't think the Mavs can win the series. I just think the Mavs, of course, there's a bit of a letdown coming off such a high of game 7 on the road, and then you're traveling, and then, you come into this game and you're just flat. But a couple things here. The Warriors, to me, just seemed way better prepared. Like, their game plan for this just seemed way better than the Mavs game plan was in terms of, I feel like not only did the Warriors know what they were going to do in terms of we're going to sick Wiggins on Luka, which is something that we talked about on Monday's pod. Have him just ride Luka the whole way up the floor, and then you're just shading Luka. And if those other guys are going to hit shots, they're going to hit shots. And they did not hit shots in game one. Now, for them to win, that means that those guys will need to hit shots four games for that to happen. Forget about what Luka does. Luka's going to do what Luka does. Cool. Luka and Steph, if they wash, cool. Comes down to the other guys. Are those other dudes going to hit shots 4 games? I don't think so. They might hit shots 2 games. And I mean, hit enough shots to win, right? So that's the first thing I'll say. The other part, the flip side of that is what the Mavs tried to do to the Warriors. And they tried to chase the Warriors off the line, but the problem is the Warriors were ready for that. If you watch the Warriors offense, they had no problem driving to the basket and just taking layups because there's little to no rim protection at all from the Dallas Mavericks. And the Warriors were fine to move the ball around and just take the layups, take the ball movement, trust the extra pass. It's almost like you're playing right into the Warriors' hands. They tried to double Steph on the double teams, and hey, you had Draymond. Draymond's whole job on the offense is to make that extra pass. They did that super easy. So what is the adjustment that the Mavs could possibly make? Well, not double teaming Steph, maybe just switching the screens and trying to play that out. Cool. I just think there's more ways for the Warriors to score consistently, even if the shots aren't falling. Right. But on the Mavs side of it, I just don't see that as being a thing. That's just me. That's just, do I see the series going 6 still? Like, the Warriors win. Like, I see the series going 6. Cool. Yeah. You could talk me, like, if the Warriors won in 5, would I be here being like, oh, I'm stunned? I just think, like, I don't know. I know there's people out here. Obviously, it's one of the top sports podcasts there are. I don't know if you heard Simmons and Russillo, but they're doing a draft of, like, the players in this series before game one. And they were taking, like, they're taking like Jay Brunson over like Klay Thompson and stuff. And I'm just like, what is going on right now? Right. It's just like the drunk off of what happened in the Mavs and Suns series, as opposed to just being like the Mavs or the Suns just didn't show up. And I mean, I know it sounds like I'm overreacting to game one. Totally get that. Totally cool with that. No. Totally get that. Totally cool with that.
Yeah.
But like the Mavs, I wasn't a believer in the Mavs. You know that from time.
Well,
we're here.
I'm
just not a believer in the Warriors. that part too, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, obviously it does sound like an overreaction, right? Because like, you were talking about, 7, Warriors and 7. I think the nothing really changed for me from a Mavs standpoint, to be honest with you. This is exactly what happened in not just the first game, but the first 2 games with Dallas and Phoenix, right? Like, I don't know what the explanation is, and you obviously did a really good job of breaking down like the X and O type elements to this, but I'm not smart enough to know what the adjustment game to game is, but if what happened in Phoenix and Dallas, every second game or every 2 games, I should say, like there was an adjustment there. Now maybe the ball movement, I guess my one issue would be the ball movement makes like a Steph Curry less vulnerable to wearing down the same way that Chris Paul did. And that would be sort of the concern level. But I'm going to need to see more than one game to sort of throw the baby out with the bathwater type of situation here. Totally. And now we have this point spread going up to 6.5. And like, that's a 1.5 adjustment off of one game. And like, that is sort of cardinal rule in sports betting. And like what we talk about like every week is like, take advantage of those adjustments when you can. And so that 6.5 point spread, like that looks that looks really familiar. It looks the same as the point spreads against the Nuggets, as the point spreads against the Grizzlies. And again, it just kind of comes down to the question that you posed, right? Like, are we discrediting the Suns so hard, or almost like we're actually giving them credit in a weird way, like they had to have just completely no-showed? Now, again, like the idea of a no-show, especially in a game,
which they did,
which they did, but like they also stunk, right? Like there's kind of 2 different, like there's no showing. Like no showing to me is sort of like you just didn't care, right? Versus just like stinking out loud. And I just find it hard to believe that the Suns just did not care. Like I have to still give credit to the Mavs for doing something over the course of that series to get to a point where, and I told, I said like the reason I didn't bet on the Suns in game 7, despite all the other home game results, was the result of game 6. Like to me, that was the biggest issue, is like, oh my God, like maybe Phoenix isn't that team because they didn't take care of business in game 6. And so,
which is something we talked about all the time though, right? Like going into game 6, like if you're serious about life, you win that game 6 on the road.
Yes. Yeah, which means, okay, I can't support you in game 7 because you should have taken care of business in game 6. All that is to say, like game 1, whether it's against Utah, whether, you know what I mean? Like whether it's against Phoenix, like, I mean, the hindsight obviously to me is more like, oh, we should have known Dallas was going to lose game 1 because like they lost game 1 in both those other series and still, took care of business eventually. So
I know what you're saying.
That's the hindsight. The hindsight isn't like a complete radical reconstruction of the handicap, right? Now, maybe again, the reconstruction and the change comes from just being like, okay, I don't think they can wear down Steph because I think they, but I'm not there yet. And now that we have an extra 1.5 on the point spread, like I have to get back in. Like I think this Dallas team, and again, most of that being Luka and everything that he does around him. And again, Jason Kidd, okay, like we're touch and go with him. Like maybe he has adjustments that are very specific to the point guard position, but like that would involve Steph Curry. And so I just look at it and go, okay, we're getting a 1.5. I don't know if they're going to cover or not. I'm just saying, like, anytime we get a 1.5 that we probably shouldn't, or that we didn't, people had plenty of time to weigh in after game 1 on that point spread and bang that thing up to 6.5. But no, it stayed at 5. And maybe that was just, sportsbooks keeping it at 5 and letting people, take the Warriors for whatever reason. But like, the point is like, there wasn't a ton of action going for the Warriors. And so, I haven't seen the shot quality numbers. I'll be interested to see what those look like. Again, we're not watching that game closely enough to be like, oh, Mavs like had the shots, they just didn't make them. Yeah. Obviously, things got out of hand in that third quarter, like a classic Warriors third quarter. And so it's hard to sort of tell, okay, there's so much time left in that game. And it was, pretty much a blowout midway through the third. You go, okay, I can't really add anything up from the entire game versus when the Warriors beat the Grizz to close them out. we saw, okay, like that all happened in the last 5 minutes.
Mhm.
So that game was played in a neutral state for like 43 minutes. This one was played in a neutral state for like what, 30? Like not even that, right?
Yeah. So in the post game, all the talk, whether it was whoever spoke from the Mavs, but Jason Kidd for sure, they kind of repeated the same thing. We got the shots that we wanted to get. We just didn't hit them. Do you know what I mean? And so
sure,
the shots were there. They just didn't fall. Right. Which is like cool. And that's a modern thing we hear a lot and see a lot in these NBA playoffs, which, you know, did the 3-pointers go in or did they not go in? And that's the thing. So that's the first part, right? That's exactly what I was talking about in terms of this just coming down to, can those guys hit shots? And you know, the reality,
and it's why we have shot quality. It's why we have metrics, because we can't believe what these guys are peddling to us on a game-to-game basis, right? We need neutral observers to be like, yeah, the shots actually were there, or they're not, right? You know, so.
And it's tough, right? And you know, watching the game and the Warriors game plan of, you know, they were very you could tell part of the game plan was to help and recover. So you're sagging into the paint, trying to contest the drive, make sure you get out to the 3-point line. And you're going to see the highlight over and over again of Draymond getting out and blocking a 3-point shot and getting all fired up, because that's clearly part of the game plan, right? Can you sag in the lane to help off of Luka, right? And they're going to try to give those guys shots and get back. And, you know, that sounds easier said than done, because I'm a firm believer that defense is effort, and you can tell me differently, but no. But I'm saying like the general consensus of like people talking about basketball think like this guy's good at defense, this guy's bad at defense. Like everyone is super athletic in the NBA, right? It's effort, mindset, and coaching, right? So you watch what the Warriors did, and it's okay. We're gonna pester Luka, we're gonna help off Luka, and then can we retreat back and defend the 3-point line? So those guys' shots, yes, they're the shots that you wanted to get, but they're probably a little more contested than you're used to. Do you know what I mean? And it becomes a difficult thing to kind of like put a stat to. Like, I know there is a stat for that. I get that, but I'm saying like a contested shot for Steph Curry or Klay Thompson is different than a contested shot for.
But that's what shot quality does. That's what shot quality does, right?
Like they literally. Though. Do you know what I mean? Like those two.
No, and that's what shot quality does, right? They literally evaluate the per player, like what that player individually does. That's why those numbers are so valuable, right? And again, I'm saying this not knowing what the results actually are yet. It could be a shot quality victory by the Warriors by 20. It could be a shot quality victory by the Warriors by 5. Who knows, right? Could even be a Dallas shot quality victory, right? The point is, from a predictive standpoint, like we need to know, okay, like if there's a hand up in Davis Bertans' face on a shot, or even if Davis Bertans, by the way, is wide ass open, right? Like either way, like that's graded differently than when the same situation is happening to Steph Curry, right?
For sure.
Like I just want to sort of clear that up, because this isn't just like, was X player, you know, blind face, you know, open. This is a player to player metric, right? Like this stuff needs to be heated in the way that you're suggesting that it should be, right?
And I think though, when that comes down to it, right, it's like the game plan from the Mavs now on the flip side was to chase off the line. But the Warriors were ready for that. Whereas I think the Mavs were just on some, we're going to take this 3. And the adjustments that you're talking about that I'm interested to see as well. I'm very interested, because I feel like the longer the series goes and Looney is still playing, the worse things are for the Mavs. Right. Because I'm stunned. I was stunned that Looney was playing that much to begin with, because I thought, okay, he wouldn't be able to play. The Mavs are going to like play him off the floor. He's just going to get put in the Luka cooker and be on Luka Island, and they're going to play him out of the game. But he was able to play most of the time somehow, or play his regular load of minutes. And so until that adjustment is made where the Warriors go small, like they're kind of still one up in this series. And for Luka, one thing I will say, like, you know, he's grabbing his shoulder already during the game in game 1. And it's like, oh, okay, Luka. All right. So we're here again. We're doing this again. All right, cool. Grabbing the shoulder already in game 1. But I will say, I think that I'm not worried about Luka from a point output standpoint. I know he only scored 20, but I also think that a lot of what he does, and this is kind of like going back to a LeBron thing that we talked about, you take the first game to kind of see what the defense is doing. Do you know what I mean? To see how the defense is playing you, see how they're going to react to you going over the screen. Are they going over? Are they going under? So like, I'm not overreacting to Luka's performance. I think Luka is going to get his. I'm more reacting to the other dudes and like, okay, so this whole like 2-day love affair we had with Spencer Dinwiddie is now gone back to, okay, he's Spencer Dinwiddie for a reason, right? Like that's more where I'm at. But hey, from the series standpoint, we'll regroup. We'll discuss again on Monday. We'll obviously be at game 3. We'll be past game 3 on Monday. So that'll be super interesting to see where we lie there. But yeah, I'm totally can't see the Mavs winning this series. And maybe that's an overreaction, but we shall see.